What's going on, y'all? I thought this was a very fitting to see on today. I'm gonna try to get through this. Today is the 1-year anniversary of my sister going home to the Lord. Very fitting. It started snowing about a month ago. How y'all doing today? Well, today is Friday, February 24th. It was a year ago today. It was a year ago today that I had to do the hardest thing I ever had to do. I had to take her off life support. So, well, hey y'all. Today's a little bit of a difficult day for me. I didn't think it'd be this difficult. I had to take my sister off of life support a year ago today. Let's see, in about 2 hours and 15 minutes from now, a year ago, they was in there taking her off life support. That is the single hardest thing I've ever had to do. She had a heart attack about 6 weeks prior, and she did drugs. Okay, I'm not even gonna try to hide the fact. She did drugs, and her boyfriend, who she was living with, he was a drug addict too. Alright. She had a heart attack. They took her to a hospital, and she didn't have any insurance, and they did a procedure on her, and they just kind of patched her up and got her out of there. A week later, this very ironic, I'm at this truck stop trying to get some fuel, and I thought I'd come here, because it's kind of out away from everybody. I thought I could just come right here and get fuel and go, but that is not the case. Anyway, but about a week later, and it happens to be that I was in Sioux City. It was 2 degrees, just like it is now. I unloaded that morning. I was headed back that night. It was early in the morning. It was like I was between Omaha and Kansas City, and I got a text message from him who I had not heard from in several years. When I saw his name pop up, I knew something was wrong. When I read it, all it said was, her name was Kim. It said, Kim's heart stopped beating. The paramedics are here. and they can't get a heartbeat. That was all it said. And I'm driving down the road, and I get that text message. And me and my sister were on the outs at the time. You know, we're both bullheaded and stubborn. I never stopped loving my sister, but I immediately started praying for her. All I said was, Lord, please keep her alive, because I knew she could not have been saved. So I just kept texting, and then a little bit later he said they got her at the hospital and she's doing better. So I knew she was at least okay. So make a long story short, I make a beeline to, she tested positive for COVID, so I couldn't go see her. Even if I went down there, I couldn't go to see her. I get a load going to Seattle, and on the way up there, and I was able to talk to her on the phone the next night. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. I had to take care of something. Yeah, they called me on the way up there. I was at the Utah, Idaho border. Something told me to call, and I had a direct line to the ICU that she was at. And I called. I had to give them a code because of some antics that was going on with her boyfriend, and just a bunch of stuff was going on. You can imagine, with that type of crowd, you can imagine the type of stuff that was going on. And they told me the only reason I even took that load up there was because they told me, yeah, she should be okay. It's gonna probably be it's gonna be at least a week or more before you can even see her, even if you came down here. You know, so they told me, I said, well, I got this load going to Seattle. They said, yeah, you should be good to take it. So I took it. That's the only reason I took it, because of what they said. I talked to her on the phone that night, and me and her made peace with each other. And I thank God every day for that phone call. That's why I say, don't ever take your loved ones for granted, because you don't. Tomorrow's not promised. And I talked to her. Me and her, we told each other we love each other. I always knew that, and she had this way of liking my little post on Facebook. She would do it from a distance. You know what I'm saying? She'd like my post, or she'd go through a friend of mine or something like that. You know, and that was like her way of reaching out. Yeah, it's just it's just stubbornness. You know, but she still, I knew she still loved me. We've always loved each other. It's just bullhead. I get up there and I call that doctor, and first thing he tells me, how soon can you get down? I knew, right? My heart sank. And they were telling me that we needed to have a family member there to make a decision. And I said, is this life or death? He says, yes. So needless to say, I had to finish my trip in Seattle. I had to drive. I had about a 10-hour drive up there. And I cried all the way up there. Got up there, got my load off. The place I parked into, there was this one, it was real tight, but there was this one spot right directly in front of where I was parked at, which made it easier for me to get in. I was able to get right in. They got my load off. I went somewhere, got a reload. They went right back to Oklahoma City. And I basically cut the E-log off. I mean, if DOT sees this and y'all want to come after me, then do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? My sister was in the hospital, and she was up there, and I don't really care. And I would have told him the same thing then. But I basically cut the E-log off because I didn't care. I drove from I had a load that went to Seattle to Oklahoma City, and I just drove straight there through a snowstorm. And I got load off way early. I wasn't even supposed to be there for like a day or two. I got load off early. They went ahead and took it. I did head back to the yard, and they had already got me a flight home. And I got me a flight. I went home, and me and a friend of mine met me at the hospital, and I thought I was going in there to take her off life support that day, but they wanted to try this tracheostomy thing. That I said, hey, I'm willing to do anything, any and everything to give her every fight chance we can, and that's what they want to do. So I said, good. So that bought her about a month, about 5 weeks. The day when those two doctors, when their time was over, the way they transferred doctors in and out, and they had these other doctors, and they were good, but these were more pushing for me to take her off life support. And I told them, I was like, look, these doctors told me to give her to this time, and on this time, that's when we'll make a decision, not a moment before. And and they was like, well, and that's fine. Well, I'm glad you agree, because that's what we're gonna do. She deserves every fighting chance, just like anybody else. The day before, I had to go back out for about a week, because I knew I was fixing to have to pay for a funeral. So I didn't have quite enough money, so I had to leave. I talked to her. She was sedated the entire time. She could hear me, because every time I talked to her, she would move, and she would, grasp my hand, and all kinds of stuff. Day before, I went out for about a week, came back. The day before, it was pouring down rain. I'll never forget it. It was pouring down raining. I made it back to the hospital. I unloaded up in North Georgia. I did head back to the house. The day before, we were supposed to take her off life support. I went in there, and she looked better than she had ever looked the whole 5 weeks I've been in there. And she's a fighter now. She always was a fighter. I walked in there, and I just talked to her. I walked in there. I was able to spend the whole day with her. Around 8 o'clock each night, I would usually leave, because this was an ICU unit, and they gave me a lot more liberties, because I was up there all the time. But they had things to do and stuff, so I'd be kind of in the way. So, and their pot, you couldn't have nobody there after like 9 o'clock anyway. Normally, but I just told her. I told her straight up, and I said, Kim, like I said, her name was Kim, and I just told her, I said, Kim, I said, this is as real as it gets. I love you. I said, but who loves you more? And this is real. And eternity is real. It's forever and ever and ever. And there's only one or two places we're gonna go. And she accepted the Lord. I was sitting there talking to her, and she squeezed my hand. She was on a vent. And she really started crying. She was more cognizant that day. And she was like making eye contact with me. She was making gestures. This was the day before. She looked better than the whole time. But when I walked out of the room that night, I was really questioning what I should do. And all I kept telling my pastors and everybody was, I don't want to play God. If we think she'll come through this, hey, I want to get, because she only had about like 15 or 20% of her heart was even functioning. What had happened the night that I talked to her on the phone that night, she had a BiPAP machine on, and she got really agitated, and she pulled the BiPAP machine off her face. Her heart wasn't strong enough. She went to congestive heart failure. She almost died that night. She went back into the ICU unit. That's why I was so lifeless. But they tried tracheostomy. They tried some different things. And I prayed. I went home that night and I prayed. I asked God. I said, God, I need your help. I need your help. I can't do this without you. I don't want to play God here. This is your decision, and your decision. This is for you to help. I need your help. And I cried myself to sleep. I woke up next morning, and I got a pretty good night's sleep. I had not been sleeping very good during this time. I went to sleep. I was able to go to sleep that night. Woke up next morning, and it felt like I was carrying a 1,000-pound weight on my chest. I just cried. A friend of mine called me. I was already upset. I cried all the way to the hospital because I knew what I was about to have to do. I went there. I didn't know what I was going to see. I walked in there, and she had taken a turn for the worse that night. She looked like somebody had pumped her up with an air pump. Her body was just full of fluid. As soon as I saw her, I knew. I was like, she has suffered enough. I said, as long as her soul is okay. When we wash off this body, the only thing left is our soul. And the only thing that's going to matter at that moment is if we accept the Christ or not. That's it. Well, she had, and I told them. I told them. They were like, "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" I looked at her. I squeezed her hand. I talked to her. She could hear me, but she was not really responding. And I just told her to give us time. And so I went to the room, and they had these people come, and they were going to call hospice in and all that. I told them I didn't need hospice. I just wanted my sister to be comfortable. All I wanted. They assured me. My whole goal was for her to be comfortable. I didn't want her to suffer, because she couldn't breathe, without help, without that vent. So they assured me that she would not suffer. That was my main. Now, if she was going to suffer, there's no way I'd done it. They kept her comfortable. Told him, I said, we'll do it at 3 o'clock. That gave us time to get some friends in and say their final goodbyes and all that. And then at 3 o'clock, I had been just sitting in there with them. And that's when the doctor showed up. And they asked me again, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" I told them, I said, "Look, I really had second guesses, but I just told them, I said, are y'all sure she's not going to suffer?" And they assured me no. And I knew she was either she was going to make it or she wasn't. She wasn't going to live a life on a vent, keep up with a machine, She wouldn't want that. She wouldn't want that. I mean, I didn't want that for her. So she was ready, and we went ahead with it. They were saying she would last a few minutes. She lasted about 4 hours. That's how strong she was. And she passed away about 7:25 that night. I was sitting there holding her hand the whole time, and it looked like she just went to sleep. She looked so peaceful. I'd never seen her look so peaceful. But the only reason she was looking that peaceful was because of what the miracle that God had performed in her heart. And He saved her. Just like the thief on the cross. He saved her. So, yes, today is a sad day for me because I miss her. But I know where she's at. I know she's doing a whole lot better than any one of us. She's not suffering no more. And she's whole. So, even though I'm sad to not have her here, I know where she's at. And I'm happy for her. I know I'll see her again one day. I'll see her, my mom, my nephew, my grandmother, and all the rest of my family, and hopefully I'll see my dog Nitro. We had a house fire back in 2018, and we lost everything. And he died in that fire. I believe he was running back in looking for me. With all the confusion, he didn't see me there, and he ran back in. Because that's the only reason he would have ran back in there. Because my mother was outside, everybody was outside, and I was the only person that he was familiar with that wasn't there. He ran back in looking for me. He sacrificed his life looking for me. But I just, just want to share that with y'all. The tears that I have are tears of joy, really. I do miss them, but she's not suffering. So. But I'm about to head down to Arkansas. I got loaded. I'll share with y'all about that when I get down there. Appreciate y'all. Y'all take care of yourselves. See you.